I think that today British and Ukrainian young people often engage in similar activities in their leisure time. So I can imagine that at this moment in time, a lot of British children and young people back home are sitting in front of their computers, like Ukrainian children are, using Facebook. Probably in Ukraine they're using VKontakte more because we don't use that in Britain, and I think Twitter is more popular in Britain than it is here. So, young people will be using their computers, messaging each other, chatting online, using Skype or other programs, using their smartphones just to keep in touch virtually, and messaging each other, sharing various funny things over the internet. However, I also think that just like Ukrainian young people, British children also, they still go outside despite all the attractions of the internet and computers. So they'll meet their friends down in the town somewhere, they'll go out for a drink, for coffee, they'll go to the cinema, see a film, probably a lot of the same films as they're watching in Ukraine. And other children and young people might be more active as well, joining sports teams, going for music lessons, or some of them might be engaging in their hobbies and passions. So going for music lessons, learning a musical instrument, having dancing lessons, things like that. So or also riding a bike somewhere, riding around the countryside or around the city. So a lot of similarities, I think, in leisure activities and what young people do in their free time. While British and Ukrainian young people have things in common where they both engage in sports groups and music lessons, I think something of a difference between British and Ukrainian young people is that a lot of Ukrainians are encouraged to engage in private language tuition or after-hours language tuition, which isn't something, unfortunately, that British young people do. Languages are neglected at school, and that means at universities as well foreign languages aren't popular. But a lot of young British people do go on holidays abroad, but I'm not so sure that they know the languages or even the cultures of the countries that they go to. So some young people will go abroad with their parents, but others, once they're a bit older, 16, 17, 18, might go away with their friends as well. So a lot of British young people go abroad for their holidays with their families or with their friends, and a difference between Ukrainian and British young people is the idea of the gap year. So when you finish school, which is a bit older than in Ukraine, so at the age of 17 or 18 in Britain, some people might choose, instead of going to university, to go on a gap year. So they'll go abroad, maybe travel all around the world. That's quite popular, often working along the way, earning money to move on to their next stop. Or someone might take a part-time or full-time job as soon as they finish school, earn some money, go abroad for some or all of their first year after university, and then after a break go on to university and start their degree. Of course, some people won't go to university and they might choose to do something different. I think in Ukraine and Britain there is quite a similar approach to university, in that young people have diverse ideas about the significance of university. For some people it is a very prestigious place to go, and it's an achievement, and they're very happy for themselves, and their families are very happy that they have someone in university. But I think, like in Ukraine, for a lot of young students, university is just a necessity or an obligation, that it's something that you have to do to get onto the job market, not really for a passion, not really out of a passion for the subject you're learning or what you might learn in future, but simply because you need, after 3 years or 4 years or 5 years in Ukraine, your degree certificate, your diploma that says you've completed university. I think there's something of a social pressure to go to university in Britain, and I think it's the same in Ukraine, that parents will do everything they can to get their children to go to university. But I think that means that some parents and young people as well overlook the opportunities that are available by taking a different route after finishing school, that it might be a good career move and beneficial financially to look into more vocational subjects, so training for a specific job, becoming an electrician, a plumber, a mechanic. All of these things can pay very well, and often far better than anything someone with a degree in languages or history or the other humanities subjects might achieve. But obviously those approaches to education don't have the same social prestige. Perhaps because British young people are slightly older when they make up their minds about going to university, so they're almost adults when they decide most of the time. Maybe parents don't have quite as much influence as they might in Ukraine on what subjects their children go to study, but I still think parents are one of the traditional role models for young people in Britain, like they are in Ukraine. For some people, teachers might be role models as well, and siblings. I don't know so much about whether celebrities and sports people are as big a role models as they are for British youngsters, but I'd certainly say that looking at current celebrity culture and the number of followers people have on Twitter and Facebook, that it's definitely celebrities that serve as role models for young people rather than, say, politicians or the royal family, as someone might expect traditionally. I think another popular leisure activity for young people in Britain is going to music gigs, to see concerts, so to see their favourite performers and artists live. For some people, they like the mainstream artists, so Lady Gaga or Justin Bieber, who often serve as role models for them. But other people let music become the chief defining feature of their personality or their identity. So they form different subcultural identities based on the music that they listen to. So there might be, emo kids or goth kids, indie kids, or people usually from cities who enjoy urban music or hip hop and rap and things, and that becomes something that influences not only the music that you listen to, but also your fashion, who your friends are, and where you hang out, what gigs you go to, where you see live music, what other influences you have. Generally, I think young people in Britain and Ukraine have similar interests and engage in similar activities in their free time, in their leisure time, and I think probably Ukrainian and British parents have similar concerns about their children when they're teenagers, so whether they're going to grow up to be successful, have a good education, whether they're hanging around with the right people, whether they're not getting involved in crime, drugs, drinking too early, or if there's no danger of teenage pregnancy or fathering a child too early. So I think there's similar concerns there. Maybe judging by the Ukrainian and British media, maybe there's less prominence of some of the more extreme problems associated with British youth, so knife crime, shootings and gun crime, especially in the larger cities of Britain. I think maybe a difference between Ukrainian and British young people is, well, from the people I've encountered, that maybe the church still plays a bigger role in Ukrainian children's lives, that from the students that I've taught and the young children that I teach at a language school, then they certainly seem to go to church more than the young British people that I know. So maybe that's a difference. But then in their leisure time and what they do at home, playing computer games, listening to music, what they do at school, everything seems quite similar. Maybe just the conditions that they do it in and the access that they have to different facilities is a little bit different. In some respects, Ukrainian children seem a bit more independent, like parents will let them go to school on their own, catch the bus on their own at a younger age than they do in Britain.